The NBA Finals are upon us, and what better time to talk about how skills in basketball and other sports translate into the marketing and business world. With us today, we have Jayson Wells, and he's going to help talk through some of the skills he's learned and how he helps coach people with those skills across all assets of life and business. All that and more today on the Marketing Madmen podcast.
They say marketing is a madman's game. So now we turn it over to the Marketing Madman with Nick Constantino and Trip Job.
Happy Saturday. Welcome to the Marketing Madmen. Trip Job here with Nick Constantino. And, you know, we have hit so many topics already here in season 2 that I think, we kind of forget a little bit about ourselves.
Yeah,
right,
sure.
In our career. And, Nick's got this, career that's on this huge upward trajectory. I've got one that's, I've been like Space Mountain. I've been up and down, around, and all of that.
So what you're saying is it's time for me to go down. So because we all take those flows. No one goes
still
up.
Going up. Yeah, you're like the Hulk. You're still going flying out on the upward. But, the reality is your career does have a lot of twists and turns. And I think, early in my career, I didn't always realize, hey, do I need to market myself? Just put my head down and work. And I think over the years, I try to give that advice back to people. And it's fun that we're going to be able to talk about that today.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting topic. I think as someone personally, I get reached out on LinkedIn by some sort of life or mentor coach 3 times a week. And I have not been impressed by the ones that reach out to me. Their pitch is atrocious. They take no time to learn anything about me. They have less followers. They have less career directory. They have less influence. And they're telling me that I should learn these things. Yeah. So I'm very happy to have someone in who actually has the pedigree and the experience to do the coaching, and who he coaches is, I think, the kind of people that really need it and the kind of people that can show impact and share that love and that knowledge. So I'm going to introduce Mr. Jayson Wells. I'm going to introduce him as a mindset enhancement coach and find out what the hell that means as we go into the segment. But, one of the things that's important here is you have to have the pedigree, right? And Jayson comes from a pretty substantial sports background, faced adversity, traveled a lot, seen a lot of the world, and I think those are underrated things. I think when we talk sales, I always tell people is how do you know a good salesperson? And Trip and I had this conversation here. Mine is the more diverse your background and your experiences are, means the more people you can talk to and relate to, which builds rapport, which makes you a good salesperson. So with that being said, Jayson, welcome. Tell us about your qualifications as a mindset enhancement coach.
I mean, Nick, you said, first off, thank you, Trip, for allowing me to be here. You said it. You get reached out by these people, and there are these social labels, and I'll be the first one to tell you that when you look through my LinkedIn specifically or my business card, if we exchange information, one of the first things that you'll see are words that you don't typically see. I shy away from social labels. When I was on the court doing basketball development, I was one of the first guys to say that I'm a skill developer, not a basketball trainer. And it's really that intentional for me. I just had a conversation literally 24 hours ago with a young man that we were doing basketball on the court when he was in high school. He's now a 24-year-old young man in the music industry. Coach Jay, man, I'm starting to realize it was never about basketball. Yeah. It was about all the other things. I remember how much you were on me about communication. I wanted you to talk on the basketball court because that was going to transfer into now how you communicate in life, how you communicate in your relationships. But going back to the mindset enhancement piece, that's my intentional wordplay on I shy away from life coach. I shy away from transformation coach.
I feel like you're empowering the people to realize it's in them. You're helping giving them the skills to let it come out of them, as opposed to shoving something down their throats. Because we've all been coached that way.
I listen to words. You just said empower. I got wristbands for you guys. It's an acronym for me, DEW, which is personal for me. It's my dad's initials. When he passed away, it was my own little tribute to him. And then as I've started to morph into this business space, it's actually my why statement or purpose statement verbalized, which is to develop and empower winners. And I'm really specific. Motivational speaker. I'm in this paid space of motivational speaking now. God forbid you pay me to motivate you or your team, and that's not what I do. I didn't perform. And at the end of the day, motivation, I walk out with my check. You walk out feeling good with your palms in the air. What do I do now? Inspiration, next level for me. Okay, cool. I feel good about what you did. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do something different for a short period of time. Could be a day, could be a month, could be a year. But at some point, I'm probably going to revert back into the habits that I'm more comfortable with or that I'm used to doing or that I feel like got me where I got to. For me, I'm about the empowerment play. Yeah. I'm about how do we now have this interaction to where now you are going to do something and the words that I use are more, better, or different. If you're already doing it, how can I do it more? If I'm okay at it, how can I do it a little bit better? Or if it's something I make a total shift in, how can I do it differently?
And that's the most important. Sometimes it's time of realizing when it's not the right thing for you anymore. Absolutely. And I bet you there are too many athletes out there that are being pushed to do something which they will never be able to. And I'm not saying stop your dreams, but I'm saying, in sales, a no is better than a maybe. And in a career trajectory, knowing when it might be time to pivot is to transfer the skills. There's no bad that comes out of athletics.
Absolutely.
There's no bad that comes out of competition.
In 3 words, and I've always, people talk about motivate and inspire, which are fine, but those end up being typically one way, and then once that person who does the motivating or the inspiration is gone, what happens? When you talk about empower, it's to make it continue on in your own mind.
Absolutely.
That to me, that's critical.
Absolutely, and that is exactly. I'm gonna hire you to be my spokesperson because that sounded so much better coming from you. Than me. But yeah, that's it. I want to empower, not even change, because it may not be change, and this is another piece into the word enhancement. Enhancement for me is, as I played around, transformation. Like, how do you tell the person that is A, scared of change, which most people are, or B, how do you tell the person that's living this high-performing life that you should change? So it's not about transformation or change for me, and that's why I chose the word enhancement, because for me, no matter where you are, if I'm in a place where I'm challenged in life or I'm in a place where I'm crushing it in life, most people that I know want to get better.
Right.
That's where the enhancement piece comes.
Maybe it is just confidence.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
and I deal a lot right now with, the younger kids, and my kids are now in college and beyond, but, sometimes it's just giving them the confidence because of all the things that are out there, and it's, they don't end up doing, whether it's sports, whether it's music, whatever it is, they don't do that for their career, but the confidence they get from doing that allows them maybe to go on to something else.
I'm going to throw a counterpoint in here, Trip, and I'm going to ask Jayson about his trajectory, because one of the things I've realized, especially when we talk about AAU and basketball, I think these kids are given a little too much confidence. I've seen too many kids that come up through these systems that from 14 years on, they know they're playing at UNC, they're gifted all these things, and they are bad NBA players because they don't have that extra gear because they've been told they're the greatest thing since 14 years old. And would you... let's agree with that statement or disagree, but I want to hear about your basketball career in this segment because setting this up, the experience you've had, I think is really important.
Sure. Literally, I can refer to myself as a little boy, born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. Spent the first 17 years of my life in Cleveland, Ohio, pretty much not going out of Ohio. This was at the time, this is early, mid-'90s. So you're talking about not what we see now with AAU and travel ball, where now these young people are literally going all over the country. I went to school in Indiana, Terre Haute, Indiana. If you're familiar with that, I like to say he's the second best player to go there after me. Talking about that confidence piece, clearly that's a joke. And so I'm this Midwest kid. I'm this Midwest kid where literally the first 21 years of my life I spent between Ohio and Indiana. And then at 21 years, and I'm young too. So I started school when I was 4 and I never made that year up. Wow. So I started high school as a 13-year-old. I graduated high school as a 17-year-old. I started my freshman year of college at 17. I didn't turn 21 until December of my senior year of college.
Oof.
That
you better had a good fake ID. You better have had a good fake ID. It was a lot easier back then, offline. It was a lot easier. It was a lot easier back. It was a lot easier back then.
And then at 21 years old, I'm posted and have this opportunity to now literally travel the world. My first job was in Stockholm, Sweden. $30,000. I have absolutely no issues sharing that dollar amount because, one, for a little boy from the Midwest, I thought I was then Jeff Bezos.
You might have stood out a little bit in Stockholm as well. I could imagine in Sweden that year.
Not so much. And not so much.
Really?
Because, again,
even back then. I mean, now I know it's a more diverse place.
For sure.
Wow,
but even then, the diversity, because you had, like, Stockholm is like New York City.
You're a big city.
If you get outside of Stockholm, a little different.
Now you started to talk. But for me, I was right in Stockholm. My apartment was right next to what they call the Globe, which is like this multi-event space. And it was the absolute best first place for me to be introduced to what would eventually be the next 13 years of my life. Ages 21 to 34, I spent 8 to 9 months, 10 months, depending on where we went in the playoffs, in somebody else's country, somebody else's culture, somebody else's language, somebody else's food.
Now, is that common? Is that deliberate that you moved so much? Is it because the nature of the business, with the teams losing? Like, I'm just curious.
Trajectory of what that individual's purpose is. So for me,
so you chose some of those.
Mine very quickly became, man, I get to play this game that I've been playing my whole life. You're giving me money to do it, and I get to see the world? Well, let me see how much of this blue rock that I can see. Yeah. And so, and then you have guys that will go to a country or go to a team and play their entire career there.
Right.
So
that's why I asked.
Really,
so
it really,
you had dictate. You had the dictate.
Yeah. And for me, it was a play of. I'm a hard worker. I'm a blue collar guy. When I say Midwest, I'm Midwest. All I know is hard work. And so I was constantly playing myself into what I considered to be the next best contract.
We're going to come back to it in the next segment,
sure.
But it sounds like you were building different skills through each visit, where some people just want to keep working on their own skill set. They're comfortable, and that's the only place they want to be.
Was that deliberate too? Did you know you were doing that, or did you just go through? Yeah, that's what I was going to say. All right, but that's the best way. That's the best way. You wake up one day, you're like, oh my goodness, this might be a thing. Yeah,
so,
that's great.
One of the phrases that I use is versatility adds value. I'm a stickler to words. I'm a stickler to phrases. I love acronyms. I love alliterations. I love little short, embrace your story. I love little short 3-word things to where people can hear them, apply them, and really start to move those, to empower them into doing them in their life. Versatility adds value goes back off court and on court. My dad used to tell me, hey, if you can be in a position where coach can slide you over as opposed to coach can take you out,
sure,
you've now added value.
That's modern basketball now, right? Switch culture, you got small ball.
What we're playing now was me in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And coming through the marketing rounds as a generalist, same type of thing versus, now
master
we
of
have
none.
specialists.
And master of none.
Let's
do it after the break.
Let's come back. And we got a lot of places to cover, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Sure.
We're listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3, and we will be right back.
This morning in the Atlanta airport, no one's missing a meal on Mac Wilburn's watch. With 11 restaurants to serve passengers, he's got dining for every destination. And it all started when Mac talked with First Horizon Bank about opening a franchise in the airport. Now it's open for business and cleared for takeoff. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Mac. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here, and we are joined by Jayson Wells. And we were talking about right before the break, skills, and you learn things at times, and that versatility. So, I think it's an area we want to explore a little bit more. I mean, Nick, you had a few thoughts on that.
Well, look, I just say out loud that I think there is value in being a master of none, right? Where, you can be really good at one thing, and there is a career for a guy in the NBA that just shoots threes, right? But those careers are dwindling. Yeah. Right now, you look at someone like Joe Harris on the Nets, who we thought had all this trajectory. He's
an all-star.
That thing is kind of phasing its way out. Even if you look, Steph Curry is Steph Curry because of his threes, but that guy drives like someone of his height should not be able to because of the threat of the three. So I think the master of none generation is starting to come, where it's better to be diverse in your approach and your skill set. And I think based on where Jayson's leading, he shares that thought. So Jayson, talk a little bit about what you think about that.
As I mentioned, versatility adds value. And that quote specifically, jack of all trades, master of none. And typically we stop there. But if you look up that quote, it actually says jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
Yeah.
So I think exactly what you're just saying.
And I think there's someone who embraces that has this passion and this heart, Okay, they can be that versatile player. And when you start talking about, I was trying to think in the NBA who is there, and kind of a Patrick.
We're gonna go on this roll
Patrick
here.
Beverly came up to me because honestly, he's not that good, but the guy is just a bulldog.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
You know?
he's been traded a lot though. He's been on too many teams.
But how
he's been on too
long,
many
how
teams to
long
have
is
real
a
value.
6'2" guard been around in the league?
I'm going to throw out
People want
Marcus
him.
Smart just personally.
That's another one,
because he's been on the same team for quite some time.
Same
yes,
intensity.
You can be value of doing multiple things.
And it's what those guys do, because I would put Marcus and Pat in the same. So it's funny. I actually played against Pat overseas before he got into the NBA in the Ukraine. But even those guys, defensive specialists, bulldogs,
good pick and roll guys, screen setters,
and all of those things are the versatility. We treat the versatility as if it's always shooting, rebounding, ball handling. Like, no, I'm a Swiss Army knife. But in this realm, I do a variety of different things, and that's where it shows up. It's the same as in business. Like, it's not just the big things; it's also those smaller things that play out, and now that's where my versatility comes from.
Yeah, and that's great. And I think I completely agree with it. And I think the NBA reference is one a lot of people would understand. But like you said, if you look now, titles are almost non-existent, right? Job roles are almost non-existent. If you do not know how to do X, Y, Z in a business, your value ends at a certain point.
Absolutely.
That versatility to be able to slide in, because then when it hits the fan, and I think in life we should always prepare for when it hits the fan, because it's the people who would respond in those times that are the ones that usually succeed. In those times when that coming down to that playoff shot, you might have not made the shot, but you made the right pass.
Sure.
That is as looked at these days as the guy who made the shot.
Absolutely.
Because that pass has to get to a guy who's the most open in the best position, and that's why the ball handler never starts with the ball anymore. It used to be Kobe wants the ball, he's going to go shoot. Now the plays are built to get the ball in someone's hands by deception or rolls off of it. So,
well, and I think I want to go back to something very early on that you talked about with skills. All right. And I think about it from, as I've been a business coach, marketing leader, sales leader, I just did it with a new hire. We're talking about kind of the 90-day plan. And there was one point we actually call it competencies. It's not about the results. And Nick, you're right about some of these kids have so much confidence. All right. But I think they get confidence in the overview or maybe the results of their team winning.
Yes.
Where it sounds like, Jayson, you're about, I'm going to teach them this skill, whether maybe it's a ball handling skill. For me, it might be in the marketing side. I'm going to teach them to understand product and really understand product development. And then next year, we're going to focus on, I'm going to teach you, how do you build out a portfolio.
You're talking the Kawhi Leonard plan here. One skill per year, the Popovich-Kawhi Leonard plan here.
But
I agree completely.
Yeah. But has that what you were talking about when you talk about you build skills and then maybe that builds confidence so that the versatility can come later on?
Confidence. First off, let's define that, and not now between the three of us, but if I'm working with a player or if I'm working with a CEO or an executive leader from the senior leadership team, let's define that first. Okay. So again, I'm all about this understanding of, let's first know what it is, then let's understand what it is and what it is. Let's have a common language that you and I or the team now, I call it clear speak. And now
and be ready to adapt. Everyone speaks differently, but you have to have a unified language across it.
Authenticity.
All sports,
authenticity? Cool. We all understand what that means, but now what does that mean in the common language? If Nick is showing up in his most authentic self, is that what's best for the team?
You can't walk
now?
into a high school basketball team playing country music, right? You gotta have the right. And I just say, let's call a spade a spade. I mean, you need to go in with the right. It has to match the culture. Now that being said, there's a room for some AC/DC. There always is. But I'm just saying, you don't start with that. You mesh that in as you go. But that culture and that common speak, I think, is very important.
Trip, and to finish on that. Confidence now. Confidence doesn't come. If I were to ask someone, where do you get your confidence from? Yeah. Most people at a high level will say something along the lines of, I get them from reps. And I say, yes, go deeper. Because I don't get confidence from simply the reps. I get confidence from successful reps.
Yeah, deliberate reps.
So now if I'm just doing it, because if I'm practicing something and I'm not doing it well, my confidence is actually going to go down. So now it's those successful reps.
You refine
That's
that
what
skill.
leads to the confidence. My confidence now allows me to be able to repeat that. Now it becomes habit. And then highest level for me is even beyond habit. Now it becomes instinct. I don't even think about what I'm doing. I'm just doing it. I have a 15-year-old son and he's in the space now. And what I share with him is I'm never worried about the guy that's guarding me. I know I'm going to get past him. My instinct is now, where's his help?
Right.
Is it early help where I got to drive and kick? Is it late help where I'm now driving all the way to the basket? But my instinct says he's not going to stop me. But you have to get to a point to where that's habit, and that's built from the confidence, which is built from the successful reps.
Well,
and that's in anything, bro. It's sports,
absolutely.
it's business, it's life.
Yeah, but I think what you're doing is you're, again, building those skills that someone can use that to work off of.
Absolutely.
It's not just telling them they're great or not pointing to the scoreboard at the end, because guess what? We all know the score can happen for a lot of reasons.
Either way.
In business.
Check out this Final
Guess
Four.
what? You can walk into the most amazing situation and ride the wave.
Yeah.
And
Right.
context is so important here, right? The problem with these kids is not they are the best kid on the team right now.
Yeah.
But when you go play in college, you're one of 12
Yeah.
kids. And when you go
That
play in
were
the
the
pros,
best
if
kid
you
on their
even make
team.
it,
Right.
if you even make it, college football is another great example. You may be the fastest linebacker in college football. That don't mean you can be that fast in the NFL.
Sure.
So that's what's really important too. And I think the reps matter, but it's also that knowing that is fleeting that moment in everything.
And we'll get into, I coached a lot of baseball travel as well as rec and all that. And, so many of these parents were like, we want them to pitch, we want them to do this. I'm like, look, we're going to do all this, but just hold on. We don't know anything in the world of baseball till they're about 16.
Absolutely.
I said, because guess what? Until we know they can throw a breaking pitch or hit a breaking pitch, it's meaningless.
Absolutely.
I mean, we need to develop the
Puberty is
skills.
awkward for everybody.
But, the best hitters in the world may only be able to hit a straight fastball. Guess what? They're not going to make it in college.
Absolutely.
And I said, we'll do all the things we want. But please, and baseball, I think, is in some ways a little unique in that, is that the breaking pitch basically defines
it
go, no go.
Make or break you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, those, like you said, are skills.
Yeah.
And I think in the end, one of the problems with basketball is that you determine so much from the athleticism of a player at a certain age that so many go on to fail. I had a buddy in D.C. that was he did something very similar to you. He coached at Paul VI in D.C., worked for Nike, raised kids, raised two guys. Two of his best players were Josh Selby and Kendall Marshall, right? And he thought these two players were going to be the next Cummings. And I asked him what happened. He said Kendall was too slow. Ultimately, Kendall averaged 11 assists a game for the Lakers at one season. For the Lakers, 11 assists a game was too slow for the NBA. And Josh Selby was too fast. He wasn't deliberate enough in the way he intended to play basketball. These were two five-star athletes coming out. And he realized that, but he realized that it's made much harder now to guarantee that these kids, that even five-star recruits, are going to be NBA players.
No question.
For those reasons, because it's just a different game.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to something we talked about, the parents. Because I know you get involved in that a little bit with both the kids themselves and the parents. I don't know what your view of where we are today and how you're trying to, maybe empower both the kids and the parents to take on things differently.
Sure. The business as it's set up is the entity is called the Winning Mindset Institute. And there's two legs to that. The leg that we're in right now, and we've been talking about, I refer to as athletes on purpose. Athletes on purpose is now focused on the athletes, the parents, the coaches. And the words/verbs that we use for the athletes, it's an elevate piece. It's an elevate piece of how do we allow them and arm them with opportunities to be able to elevate their game and also identify who they are minus the game. I don't care how far you play, how high you go. I'm not a huge stats guy, but one of the stats that I throw out is 100% of athletic careers will end.
Yeah.
So now who are you now? It doesn't matter whether it's high school varsity, whether it's college, whether somebody gives you money, whether you play for 5 years or whether you play for 15 years, it will end. We all knew somebody like Kobe was going to be okay when his game was over. LeBron's going to be okay. Like, I got questions about Mr. Brady. I love him. But why did he play till 45? And my question that I asked myself is he Cap Rooney? from any given Sunday? Is he playing till 45 because he's telling himself, this is all I really know how to do? And I think he'll be phenomenal behind the microphone, and clearly can't remember what network he signed with, but they think so too with the money that he signed for. But it's that part. From the coach standpoint, how do we now enhance what they're doing? How are you getting better, coach? You keep talking about these kids. What have you done? Why are you upset that this young man or this young lady doesn't know how to use a rotary phone when you don't even use a rotary phone anymore?
Man, I think you can't get a better example than Belichick right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, I saw for the first time ever, they're like, he might be out if he doesn't win this season. Yeah. And you mentioned Brady, you can't mention the two without each other. So I think, do the institutions empower that? And the reason I ask is, does the University of Georgia prepare these kids for life after, or are they just so worried about them being football players?
I think it depends on the situation. I think it depends on the institution. And and
are you filling a gap for that to some extent?
For sure.
That's the niche you feel to fill that gap.
And that gap is also filled by the willingness of the leadership in that particular institution, organization, team, culture, whatever. One of my biggest issues is coach that says, oh, yeah, we want personal development, we want cultural development, character development for them.
What about you?
Well, what about you?
Yeah.
I'm often inviting the coaches in, like, no, you got to be in here too, coach. This is team.
And one, I will give, look, he's got his warts. He's also a PR machine. But I give Nick Saban a lot of credit because Nick he's changed how he's looked at it. And there's a lot of coaches that are still doing it the way they did it 15 years ago. And they might change their offensive scheme, but they haven't changed the culture. Yeah. Nick has changed a lot.
Again, here we go back to one of my guys. He calls them Jaysonisms. Yeah. So here's a Jaysonism: change with the times, yet cling to unchanging principles.
Bingo.
The principles don't change. Yeah. Principles of values, respect, hard work, discipline, love. I said it. I said it. Like, those things don't change.
The delivery mechanisms.
The delivery. And so it doesn't matter whether you're talking about Coach Saban, whether you're talking about Coach K, whether you're talking about Bobby Huggins, Jim Boeheim, Tom Izzo, like all of these people that have been doing it for such a long time. It's not about how they did it. There's no way that you can tell me that Coach K coached Jay Billis and Tommy Amaker the same way as he coached Jason Tatum and Zion Williamson. But his principles stayed the same. You got a West Point guy very much rooted into the discipline and the values of these simple things, and rather over the course of 4 years, I'm gonna get this done over the course of 8 months. So that's a big piece. And then lastly, and I feel like I've gone all the way around without answering your question about the parents.
But they're coaches, so it's all right. These are the first coaches. So I think it's perfect
many times. So elevate the athlete, enhance the coach or the leader, and then equip the parent. Equip the parent. And for us, what that means is I have this 3-pronged approach of parents are misinformed, ill-informed, and uninformed. They're uninformed. They just don't know. Yeah. They literally don't know. They're uninformed because they're ill-informed because you got a bunch of guys that are living in my space that are telling them all the stuff that they want to hear.
They might not be malicious, but they're being a bit,
and it's nonsense.
They're leaving information out.
And Nick, bro, we can literally go off, and I won't, but some of it is very malicious, and it can go as far as, I am a coach, a male coach, who's now going to manipulate the situation of a single mom.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, it's dirty.
Yeah.
It's dirty.
And you're talking about single mothers now that probably are raising these kids by themselves.
Absolutely.
That are using government assistance that think they have a way out.
And all of a sudden, I've told you that your son can go to Florida State.
And I have to imagine NIL screwed that up even more because now these kids can get checks these kids can get checks at that young age.
I'm not going to go into it, but I've been here for 25 years, and look, it happens in the high school level here in town.
Sure. Yeah,
but I think you're right, though. I think ill-informed is more malicious. I think uninformed is just they don't know. Yep. Ill-informed is they're being fed the wrong information because it is easy to make someone believe in a fallacy if it's self-rewarding, and it'll help them especially get out of a bad spot. Yep.
And then the misinformed is maybe they did take a little bit of time to go do some research on their own, and now they're taking everything at face value without understanding. Case in point, NIL. So yes, is this something that coulda, woulda, shoulda been done 25, 30 years ago? Yes, we can debate that off topic, but the fact is we're here. We're in this point where young people are now receiving money based on their name, image, and likeness.
And it's dirty biz. It's not only a dirty biz; it is a unestablished, unregulated, and in the first 3 years of
money
anything,
exchange, and we're providing money to people who now still have no financial literacy, no understanding of. So now here, take this $100,000, mom or dad, but they have no idea how to set money aside. It's like winning the lotto.
Well, I think that's a good segue for, we are the marketing madmen. And, one of the things we talked about is this is part of how you market yourself and how you early on empower people. Let's turn to, you've kind of got a 3 anchor system. So we've talked about the symptoms. Yeah. Now let's talk about how you help people with the cure and market themselves.
Sure. Health, wealth, and relationships.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you think is the most important? Let's start with that one.
Yes.
That's like saying which kid is your favorite. That's like saying which kid is your favorite. I didn't think I was going to get a response. I just wanted to make sure he was paying attention.
Pause
All right, let's start with health. Let's start with the first one. Let's start with health.
Let's
start with health. Let's start with health. Then we'll go in order.
So health for me is, and keep in mind, the majority of this is now post-career. And it doesn't matter, again, whether it's high school varsity, somebody gives you a scholarship, or somebody pays you money to play. Post-career health, understanding mental health, physical health.
I'm glad you said mental first, because that is one thing that is left out of society as a whole. We talk about you take a sick day, and you're taking a sick day because your body hurts or you're sick. You're not taking a sick day because maybe you just need a freaking break. So mental health is incredibly important.
And I think that's being led by people that are in very high-performing roles. The Naomi Osakas of the world, the Simone Biles of the world.
Always under a microscope.
I'm going to upset some people. Cool. I'm not doing this out of disrespect for you. I'm doing it at the ultimate respect for myself.
Yeah.
Have your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion, but this is what's going to be best for me.
Osaka's a great example. She what she did at that age, the amount of courage it took to do what she did, and those things, and the amount of people that got behind her had to be a good sign for people. And there can be those old school people that are like, shut up, you're making $1 million to play sports. But at the same time, you are empowering youth and women in sports to do things and do things on your own way. For sure.
This doesn't feel good. So yes, the mental, the physical, the emotional. However you want to go, like that's all a part of your health. Like we all know the guy. My nephew told me this not too long ago. There was a guy that I went to high school with who was like 3-sport everything: 2-guard on the basketball court, quarterback on the football field, pitcher on the baseball diamond. And now at 45, 46 years old, my nephew walked up to me. He's like, "Unc, man, I'm so glad you take care of yourself, because there's no way I would have thought you and him were the same age."
Yeah,
he just physically didn't. I'm done. I've done all the workouts that I want to do, and now I'm just going to let myself go. That's the physical part. The mental part. Like, how do I now identify who I am when I'm not throwing, hitting, kicking, catching this ball anymore?
How do you feel good about yourself? And even, one of the things, so, I mean, I'm fortunate because I would say earlier in my career, I wouldn't have had employers who allow me to do this with Nick 1 day a week. I enjoy it. I learn a lot. Hopefully we're giving back.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, look, it's not bad for business, but it's not about business for me. But my employer allows me to do this, for an hour every week.
Yeah.
So
Talk about mental health. I think the diversity again is important. It can't just be sports. What is it that you love? What are the hobbies? What are the things that make you get out of bed and motivate you to do it? Yeah. I'm always told that the best way to be good at something is make it feel like it's fun and make it be fun. And if it's, for me, if it's stupid things like when I mow the lawn, I got my headphones on and I am blasting music that I can't listen to with the kids around, and I am running through that lawn, halfway doing the running man through my lawnmower to just feel like I'm doing something different.
I got a whole picture right now.
It's awesome. I was a Queens kid, man. It's a good running man. So, but I think that's important. So, again, because we're going to go through this quick, talk about wealth, because I have a feeling when you say it, what you mean is different than when someone just hears the word wealth.
Yeah, I'm that kid. I'm that kid that. And I mentioned my first job in Sweden was $30,000. I had these incremental increases over the course of the early part of my career. I was 6 years into my career before I signed my first 6-figure contract.
Wow.
But for me, the wealth piece is like understanding, the way we phrase it is understanding the fundamentals of finance.
Yeah.
Like, I was that kid that had, I hope you're doing right with your money. Are you doing right with your money? Well, what does that mean to a kid who doesn't understand money?
Yeah, and no offense, all kids don't understand money. This
Right.
are our institutions, and I don't want to go on my usual rants, but our institutions don't reward entrepreneurship or financial literacy. Our institutions want sheep to be the cogs in the mechanism.
Yeah.
Then no one teaches you credit scores, no one teaches you mortgages, no one teaches you balance a checkbook, and it's a shame they don't. So it's not specific to the kids you're dealing with.
No.
Most children are not, unless your parents do it.
If you're lucky, there's a junior achievement in your school. Guess what? That's a volunteer, and who knows what you're getting.
And cool kids don't do that, so that makes it harder.
So yes, it's that part. It's how are we now arming these young people, and remember, parents, coaches, athletes. So it's all three of them, especially in this NIL space. How are we arming these parents with the fundamentals of finance? And again, for me, it was, I hope you're doing right with your money. And this is super quick story. Like, I remember doing what I air quote thought was best for my money, because I didn't have the $800,000 house on a $200,000 salary. I didn't have, $250,000 in jewelry or the fancy car. I didn't have all of that. And so I thought I was putting money away. I remember when I got my first amount of money where I felt like I can put it away, I took $25,000 and I put it into a mutual fund. Because at that time, this is early mid-2000s, at that time, my income is made overseas. I can't do Roth IRA. I can't do certain things. And so I put $25,000 into a mutual fund, and all of a sudden the mutual fund, when ish hit the fan, like you just mentioned, the mutual fund became the bank account. And now it's a bunch of money going out and nothing coming in. And no one told me, hey, while you're making $15,000, $18,000 a month, take $2,500 and keep throwing it into the mutual fund.
Right.
No one told me that.
That's a great point. So we're going to keep diving on that when we come back from the break.
Sure.
We have Jayson Wells here on the Marketing Madmen, and you're listening on Extra 106.3.
This morning in North Carolina, wheels are spinning. Determination is winning. A passion is now a thriving business, and it shows no signs of slowing down. How? The power of a conversation, like the one Clint Spiegel had with First Horizon Bank about starting a bike wheel manufacturing facility in Asheville. Now it's not just talk, it's rubber meets road. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Clint. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here with Jayson Wells, and we were talking about Jason's, three anchor system, and we talked about health, we talked about wealth, and now we're going to talk about the third one, relationships. And I think some people probably would say wealth is maybe their most important relationship, but I'm curious your take on that, and then what you really are looking for. I know what you're looking for and what you mean by relationships.
Sure. Relationships for me are literally the root. We lay them out as health, wealth, and relationships just because that flow feels good, but really relationships is first. Whether we're talking about being a great leaders to me are rooted in relationships. Even the guys and the ladies that are really good at it right now, they're rooted in the relationships. This is not 30 years ago where go do what I say do and do it because I said do it because I'm the leader. And also from a relationship piece, I'm really big on what's the relationship with ourselves. Cliche, the most important relationship is the one about with yourself. Cool. Well, what does that look like? And if that's not in a great place, I can probably now say that the external relationships in your life probably aren't in a great place either. And so from an athletic standpoint or from an athletes on purpose standpoint, the relationships are now A, friends and family, B, networking and business relationships, and C, romantic relationships. And again, remember, we're talking post-career.
Right.
So friends and family, now I'm not shooting, throwing, kicking, hitting this ball anymore. And how do my friends and family show up in my life?
That inner circle.
Yeah. Have I created a space where now I can call Trip or I can call Nick from a business standpoint and say, hey, this is Jayson Wells, I'm doing this now and be able to have that from a networking standpoint. And then romantic relationship, all of a sudden, once again, I'm not hitting, kicking, throwing, shooting this ball anymore. And my girlfriend don't really like me like that anymore. So navigating through what those different opportunities and avenues of relationship looks like, but again, starting with self, what do I do? And so the anchors of health, wealth, and relationship, me being a basketball guy, Trip, I'm listening to you say you're a baseball guy. For me, we call it the triple threat. Yeah. There's a lot of people who are really good at 1 out of the 3. There are some people who are really good at 2 out of the 3. There are very few people who are knocking out the triple threat of all 3 out of the 3. If it's horse racing, call it the Triple Crown. Yeah. Or even in baseball. But in this world, it's now how am I now moving through all of those things?
And you said it's after sports, but what you do during your career has so much impact on that. Like, a story that they always talk about is like Kevin Durant going to Oklahoma City was the best thing that ever happened. You get in trouble in D.C., right? There's not much to do in Oklahoma City. Yeah. So he even says that going to Oklahoma City was what put his career on a certain trajectory. So I think one relationship with yourself is ungodly important, because if you don't have the self-awareness to know where you stand, then how do you know if people are taking advantage of you? How do you know if you're surrounded by the wrong women at the wrong times? You have to have a relationship with yourself is incredibly important. So talk about some of those relationships. So as your career has developed and where you are now, who you know is important. So we mentioned some camps you've done, Nike, LeBron, Chris Paul. You're talking big names. Talk about what you've done in your career to build some of those relationships and how that has helped you.
Yeah, so through Nike is where a lot of those things happen. All of those guys are quote-unquote Nike guys, and it was the opportunity for me now to be able to take what I did on the court, relationships now. Right. Hey, I'm not doing this anymore, and now I'm into this space, and going back even to that job in Sweden. So how I got involved with Nike was one of my guys that I actually played against in Sweden. We were like Lakers Clippers. On the court, we battled and tried to beat each other's heads in, and off the court, we became the best of friends. He had a short career because of injuries, started working for Nike. I played for the next 12 years. When I got done, he was deeply rooted into Nike grassroots basketball and said, hey, here's what we're doing. Come on over here. You'll be perfect at that. I now get the opportunity to work with the LeBrons, the Kevin Durants, the Chris Pauls, the DeMar DeRozans, and a
Nike
plethora of
has
other.
a very good brand, but that guerrilla, that grassroots marketing, probably you don't see it in action, but that mechanism is probably bigger than the public-facing or marketing arm of it, right? It is so infiltrated across this country, and that's why they were able to beat Adidas, Under Armour, and won when they came. And I think the other guys are trying to start to do that, but let's set that up. That grassroots was a very important part of Nike's growth.
Absolutely, and that is. It's funny because I was there for 5 or 6 years, and then I was separated for 3 or 4 years, and now I'm back on another level. So even here in the show notes, there was a phase, a period where I was the only person that was working with sports marketing and brand. So sports marketing, AKA the guys that know the game, the guys that have the relationships with these young athletes, with their parents, with their families, with their handlers. And then the brand side are the suits that don't care about the relationship. They care about the business. At that
but seeing both sides had to help.
There's a huge disparity between those two. Yep. And I was the bridge. And now I'm on the more brand side. And it goes back to, again, what are those relationships and how do I conduct myself to be able to step into this space? Because without that, it doesn't happen.
And you talk about fundamentals and principles on the brand side; those things don't change. It's about making money. Those things don't change. Well, and look, I love. I think that this space. I think that the things you learn from basketball and from coaching all manifest themselves. I think seeing the brand side and the sales, all these different things have blossomed into the career that you have right now. And I think what I'd like to, I'm glad we covered the diversity of all this stuff, because you don't achieve where you are without seeing the diversity of these experiences. So tell everybody how to find you, where to find you, the businesses, give everybody all things in case they need help. And then let's end with a little advice that you would give parents and when it is time to call somebody like you.
Sure. So from how to connect with me, if you spell my name correctly, you will find me. And inside joke right here between Nick and I. No, but really,
I did it right most places.
It's literally become the tagline to my business. I was having a conversation before we came in here and press record. For me, it is that purpose piece. So now my tagline, my signature on my email, spell it correctly because it's all about the why. It's the purpose piece. So spell my name correctly. You'll find me, JAYSONWELLS. Website is JaysonWells.com. Social handles are something along those lines. And from a business standpoint, again, Winning Mindset Institute is the umbrella. We've spoken a lot about the athletes on purpose portion of it, but the non-athletic portion of it is just as important. Yep. I have clients and organizations that I work with that are in the healthcare industry, the real estate industry, all kinds of, and it's all the same thing. So it's really important for me for people to understand that it's not just these athletes. For people that are listening that may not be or have children that are in the athletic space.
So this is fantastic. So we got about 60 seconds.
Sure.
So advice to parents.
Yeah, parents of an athlete, 5 words. 15-year-old, 12-year-old. I love watching you play. Yep. Period. Very first time I saw my son play a high school varsity game earlier this season, they live in Indiana. I drove up to Indiana at the end of a close game. They're winning, but he has the free throws that can ice the game. He misses like 5 of the 6 free throws. Walk up to him after the game. This is my first time. I'm about to get emotional even talking. First time watching him play, I couldn't wait to wrap my arms around him and tell him I love watching you play. Forget those free throws. We'll make those free throws. Yeah. But right now, what's most important for me is you. Last stat, and we can end here. 70% of athletes that start playing sports at age 6 quit by age 13. And the number one reason, the ride home. I got a kid that at one of the schools that I work with that told me, Coach, I went up to the 5th floor of a parking structure and I thought about it. And why he thought about it was because of the pressure that he feels from his parents. This is a college
I've seen
kid.
that. I remember, This
is a college kid.
Yeah. Well, Jayson, thanks so much. This has been fantastic. And definitely reach out to him at Jayson with Y, Wells.com. You've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3.
This morning in the Atlanta airport, no one's missing a meal on Mac Wilburn's watch. With 11 restaurants to serve passengers, he's got dining for every destination. And it all started when Mac talked with First Horizon Bank about opening a franchise in the airport. Now it's open for business and cleared for takeoff. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Mac. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.